What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks news, rumors, and updates. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss another daily Seahawks update. All right, guys, we have some exciting stuff to talk about, but first, a report from the NFL.com writer saying that the Seahawks cannot afford to lose Ernest Jones, and I agree he's going to be a big piece as far as re-signing him goes. That should be a key aspect of this offseason. We also are going to talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is headed to the Pro Bowl, that's right, in his second year, and we have some good news about current Seattle Seahawks defensive backs coach Carl Scott. So with that being said, let's get into today's video, guys. Ernest Jones IV, if you don't know him, he was the linebacker that the Seahawks traded for mid-season. He came over from Tennessee. Before that, he was with the Rams for the past 4 years. And Ernest Jones IV, he had a real breakout season with the Seahawks. When he came over here, he fit perfectly into Mike Macdonald's defense, so perfectly that the Seahawks, according to the NFL.com, cannot afford to lose Ernest Jones IV. He's a guy that is essential to bring back, and I pretty much agree with this. If you look at the stats, man, Ernest Jones had a great season. 77 solo tackles and 61 assists for a total of 138 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, and he had an approximate value of 8. If you guys don't know what approximate value is essentially a stat that's measured by the Pro Football Reference, and it's attempting to give just a basic number to how good of a season the guy had. 10 is considered Pro Bowl level, and he had a approximate value of 8, so that's pretty darn good for a linebacker. It means he was almost a Pro Bowl level linebacker since he got to Seattle. It's kind of like WAR in baseball, a little bit like WAR in baseball if you think about it in that way. So that's kind of what the stat is. But yeah, Ernest Jones had a great season. A lot of tackles. He kind of filled in for what the Seahawks were missing from Bobby Wagner. He kind of became the Seahawks' new Bobby Wagner, tackling machine, really tough guy. He was out there every play. He's not going to go rush the quarterback. He's not going to get a lot of quarterback hits. He's not going to get a whole lot of tackles for loss. But what he does do is he's a good defender. He's good at making tackles. He stays home. He doesn't let guys get by him. And he's a really key element of that defensive machine that Mike Macdonald is building. So, yeah, I agree. The Seahawks should absolutely focus on bringing back Ernest Jones IV. Now, would I say he's the number one guy the Seahawks need to bring back? I'm not sure if I would say that, but he's definitely a key to this offseason. I think he was an upgrade over Jordan Brooks, and obviously missing out on Jordan Brooks was losing him. That was all part of the plan because we ended up upgrading with Ernest Jones. I wish we had traded for him at the beginning of the season because honestly, if we have Ernest Jones the whole season, I don't know how accurate this would be, but if we had him the whole season, could we have beaten the Giants at home in very early October when we lost to the Giants in that early October game? If we have Ernest Jones, that game maybe goes differently. I'm not sure. It was a very close game, and our defense kind of struggled in that game. Let's say we did have Ernest Jones in that game. That might flip that game around. We win that game, and then we're in the playoffs with 11 wins. So, yeah, I think he's huge. I think he's a massive piece of the defense. Mike Macdonald clearly loves him. He fits in great, so I'd love to see the Seahawks bring him back. We'll see what the price tag ends up being, though, because the price tag is going to be expensive, and that's what we talked about. We have to make those sorts of decisions on the budget. Who are we going to cut? Who are we going to bring back? Are we going to have to cut some salary as far as maybe Tyler Lockett, even a trade of DK Metcalf? Some people want to do, but I would not penny pinch if it means you can't bring back Ernest Jones. I think that's a big piece. But guys, I want to talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's been added to the NFC Pro Bowl roster as a Pro Bowl alternate. So this is a big honor for him in his second season, and just want to appreciate how far he has come. Since he came to the Seahawks, he was a first-round pick, and people really hyped this guy up. I mean, when he first got here, people were saying he was going to be the best receiver out of Ohio State, and there's been some great receivers out of Ohio State, right? I mean, you think about some of the names that have come out of there, Garrett Wilson. People thought Jackson Smith-Njigba, people said he would be better than Garrett Wilson. They said he was better than Garrett Wilson in college. And when that's what people are saying about you, it sets the bar really high. And so I think when he came to the league as a rookie, people expected he was going to just blow the doors off the NFL because they're like, this guy, he's better than Garrett Wilson, he's better than Chris Olave, he's better than all these other players who were in the same wide receiver room. I think people thought he was just going to blow the doors off the NFL, and when he didn't do that, I think that people overreacted. But in his second season, he took a big step forward. And again, here's the numbers. Only 6 touchdowns, so I get it. Touchdowns, you still wish he would score more, but again, part of that's on Geno. But look at that. The rest of the numbers are fantastic. 1,130 yards. He went for 477 yards after catch. That's huge. That's more than a third of his yards came after the catch, which means he's really shifty, he's really fast, and he's willing to go put himself at risk, and go for the extra yards and fight for the extra yards. He went for 11.3 yards per reception. That's very good. And he caught exactly 100 passes in 2024. So yeah, JSN had a great season. As in his second year, he took a massive step forward. I think going into next year, he is the Seahawks wide receiver 1. DK Metcalf, for what it's worth, he is probably maybe the best wide receiver 2 in the league, or at least he's up there with the Devontae Smiths and the Jalen Waddles and the T. Higgins of the world as one of the best wide receiver 2s. But I think you have to admit right now, JSN is wide receiver 1. So yeah, very, very proud of him for getting to the Pro Bowl, his first Pro Bowl, first-time Pro Bowler. That's awesome, and he totally deserves it. Again, I know he didn't score a whole lot, but part of that is not his fault when Geno Smith was kind of struggling in the red zone this year. Obviously the Seahawks, well documented, have not been very good in the red zone for the past 2 seasons. Big reason why Ryan Grubb's not coming back. But JSN, despite that, he went off. He had a great year. And yeah, great to see more Seahawks playing in the Pro Bowl. Of course, Geno Smith did not make the Pro Bowl in the NFC. All right, one more thing to talk about today, guys. Seattle Seahawks assistant coach, he's the defensive backs coach, Carl Scott. He interviewed for the defensive coordinator position in Las Vegas to go work with Pete Carroll. And by the way, Carl Scott, he was on Pete Carroll's staff in Seattle. He was actually the only assistant coach that Mike McDonald kept when he hired his staff for 2025. The entire rest of Pete Carroll's staff left except for Carl Scott. So Carl Scott, he's clearly a good coach. He's worked with Reek Woolen. He's worked with Devin Witherspoon. He's worked with all these players in the Seahawks secondary who have taken massive steps. He worked with, obviously, when Jamal Adams was good, he worked with Jamal Adams. He worked with Diggs, worked with Mike Jackson. He's worked with the best, all of the best Seahawks defensive backs and secondary pieces over the past few years, and he's really helped, I think, especially with guys like Witherspoon and Reek Woolen, making those steps, becoming top cornerbacks in the league. A lot of that has been Carl Scott, Julian Love as well. Throw him in there, a guy who took a big step when he came to the Seahawks. So he's worked with some great defensive backs, and the report is that he will not be leaving Seattle for Las Vegas. The Raiders ended up hiring Patrick Graham to be their new defensive coordinator, and Carl Scott, he's going to stay in Seattle. That's big time because I really like Carl Scott. I think he's done really good things with the secondary. Clearly, he gets along well with Mike McDonald, which is always a plus. He's a veteran coach on the staff, one of the better assistant defensive coaches in the league. So great news that he's going to be back in Seattle. Well, guys, that's all I have for you guys in today's video. Make sure you all, like I said, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment down below. I want to hear your thoughts on Ernest Jones. How much are you willing to give him to stay in Seattle? I'm talking how many years? Maybe 3 years, $10 million a year? What do you guys think is the range that he deserves? What do you think is the range that he's going to get? And do you think he will ultimately re-sign with the Seahawks? I'll see you guys tomorrow. As always, thank you to FanArts for sponsoring this video. And until next time, go Seahawks.